Mr. Ononuju, you haven't answered my question. I simply asked you if we have had a report like this in the past. You could not answer yes or no.
What we're saying is this report does not tell good about us.
To interrupt you, but have we had a report like this in the past?
We have not had any precise report like this before now.
So it is difficult to compare, you know, whether or not...
Are you making excuses for today?
I'm asking you.
Do you want to defend the government's record?
Would you say that it is difficult to compare then, you know?
It's not difficult. All this tells
whether
you
we have improved
is that despite the rhetorics, there are no real changes. Why? Just before we came on, you saw Mr. Magu making his announcements. What has Magu done? He plays a game with corruption. He does not fight corruption. The new game in town is cross over to our party and you were sent. Yet, this is an agency set up by the PDP government. Plus, the biometric captures in the banks, the BVN thing was set up by the PDP government. The IPPOS was set up by the PDP government. The single treasury account was set up by the PDP government. Have you asked yourself, all the people who were caught to have gone wrong in the pension scam, has anybody been prosecuted yet? Yet, up to 95% of corruption exists in the bureaucracy. That is the center of this whole crisis. And what have we had? No prosecution. Rhetorics, rhetorics, rhetorics.
Now you say that the way forward, and you put all of this down to restructuring. Let us restructure the country, and you think that, you know, that will be the...
That will minimize the crisis. Why? Things are better done in small units. You cannot bandy Mercedes, BMW, Toyota, or pair all of it into one company. No. Allow them to operate at their own. That way things will be better.
The reason, you know, a number of people might say that maybe that is being too optimistic about what restructuring...
It is not being optimistic. It's the way it's done around the world. It is not rocket science. Let us do this. We have done something for 50 years. It did not work. What's wrong with trying something new?
So, in other words, the corruption that we have been fighting has been with us for 50 years.
It's been longer than that. Remember, when the British government was handing over to us at independence, it said the biggest problem was corruption. So corruption existed then when the British banded everything together. Corruption still existed when the soldiers banded everything together. And we are saying, it's not working. Allow us to restructure. Restructure simply means allow things to be done regionally. Let the federal government do just a few things. The defense, taxation, customs union, foreign affairs. Let the federating units do a lot of these things.
And you believe that if, you know, we restructure in the units that we will restructure to, there will be no corruption?
There will be corruption, but it will be less. Because why do I say this? Now, the employment of nepotism as policy by the current administration, for me, is the most violent form of corruption. I said this to you in 2015, September. You remember? You were calling me from Lagos. And I told you, that is the worst thing I'm seeing with this government. And you said, how can you say that? I said, look, the signs are already there. That was September 2015. And I said, this is going to damage the country, because I knew where he was coming from. Look at what we have now. Our president is unwell. The vice president is not being allowed to act in line with the law. He's only being asked to coordinate. That is corruption. If things are not done properly, things are forced to be done in ways that suits a little clique that goes against the general expectations of the country. For me, that is not proper.
I would like to take a closer look at some of the figures, you know, some of the, looking at the executive summary. I think some things caught my attention yesterday in terms of how, you know, this was stated here in the report. Now, they talked about the reach of bribery, that almost a third of Nigerian adults pay bribes when in contact with public officials. You're looking at figures of almost 82 million Nigerians paying bribe at one time or the other.
That's right. That's the way we've been. That's why we're saying, let us not change.
Do you think that is there something wrong with us as individuals? Some people believe that Nigerians are intrinsically, and that's not my belief, but some people believe that Nigerians are intrinsically corrupt. Do you share that view?
Well, because of the way the state is built, Nigeria is not a nation. Nigeria is a country of several nations competing for advantage on their own terms. And that's why we're saying there is no need for this competition. Let us restructure the country so that those nations can actually do things on their own. It is when there is that crazy struggle at the center, some people will use some kind of strategies to gain advantage.
So your point is that
restructure it, unbundle it. That's what we're saying. If you unbundle it, you wouldn't have 82 million Nigerians coming to Abuja to give bribe to get something. If you unbundle it, some will do theirs in Lagos, some other will stay in Port Harcourt, some will stay in Enugu, some will stay in Kaduna, some others in Jos. Unbundle it. That's what we're saying.
As I did point out, the report did not just focus on federal or corruption in the federal government. It also focused on corruption in the states.
Yes.
So I think that point is extremely important.
Have you noticed that some governors have not paid salaries?
But you say that, you seem to be saying that it's because there is a lack of loyalty to Nigeria as a country. That's the reason why we have a prevalence of corruption.
It does not exist as a nation that people should be loyal to. It exists as a fraudulent contraption. Today we say we have a constitution. It's not written by the people. It was compiled by some soldiers with one lawyer doing it, and then after elections, Obasanjo was handed that paper. And where we say, fine, this paper written by this soldier, and he says he wrote "We the People." It's not by we the people. Let us sit down and write acceptable protocols that will govern our being together as people of one nation. This is all we're talking about, the restructuring. Let us agree on terms that will govern us, not taking terms written to us by soldiers. For instance, the soldier gave Kano State 75 local governments, Lagos State 20 local governments. And you now share money collected by Lagos State, in this case, VAT, on alcohol. And when you share it into the 75 local governments that now exist with the original Kano State in both Kano and Jigawa, what do? They use some of that money to pay the state police, who go out to arrest people who drink alcohol from where Lagos collected. This is 4% VAT contributions. These are contradictions. So let us sit down. We've driven this car. It's not moving. Let's get to overhaul the car. That is all we're asking in our words for restructuring. Look, it's not moving, it's not working. You're going to see more damning reports than this.